should be fun. Welcome to my world. Listen, let me start, Glenn, with you.
Yeah.
2 years and 2 months ago, we went to shelter in place here in this county. Restrictions are easing, but there still risks remain. We've been pretty clear with folks, we haven't missed a day of production through that period. Can you talk about how we've been able to achieve that?
Yeah, sure. I was looking for some wood to touch whilst I was doing that and this sort of thing. So, I put it down to 3 things: people, process and execution, and innovation. And some people may be surprised you're talking about innovation and how do you do innovation. So let me talk to you about what really happened. Just over 2 years ago, the world changed on all of us. We thought things were going to get better and so on. We went, as the world was going into lockdown in the Bay Area, we had a team here that overnight, they basically re-imaged, re-engineered, whatever term you want to do, and redesigned our whole production process. Some of the guys that walked you around, Brad Fields and Keir Van, literally worked through with a group and the EH&S team. And so we redesigned our whole factory here so that there was no job that required 2 people to be within 6 feet of each other. Yeah. And so there was some heavy lifting stuff. We brought new equipment in and so on. And then we also restructured the whole factory flow so that no 2 people had to cross over each other as well. So that was, and then we masked up straight away. So that enabled us to go into, continue our 24/7 operation. But on top of that, at that time, at that stage, we were also reaching out and helping the local community. We believe in helping out others. So Joe Tarby was mentioned earlier on, also at the same time, overnight set up a ventilator refurbishment program in partnership with Stanford as well. And as that work moved forward, we actually also extended that partnership. I think KR picked up the phone to the head of Stanford, and we actually put on a laboratory, a testing laboratory, mobile one was put onto our site. So we were able to test everybody within hours, get results, and then maintain safety for our people at the same time of restructuring and re-engineering what we did as well. And that's enabled us to keep operating 24/7 throughout this whole area. But let me add something around, what are the things around the people? Sometimes you really learn a lot about people when you see them under pressure. And so the organization actually rose across the whole organization, rose to the occasion. And we actually looked at our employees, we're testing on site, and our culture is around trust and respect, as well. And so therefore, if people didn't feel well and felt they had symptoms, we would actually pay for them. They stayed at home. We would rather that they were safe. And so, we made them to be safe. And then if anything happened with the testing, we could literally put protocols in place straight away, clean the factory and so on, and isolate the issue. So those sort of things really helped. But also, we're going to talk a little bit about the supply chain team, the miracles that the supply chain team have done under pressure. But I want to give you another example of something that we were able to do that I don't think other companies are able to do, because one of my other roles is a head of service as well. And Satish talked a bit about, he signaled, hey, I'm going to have a trouble with this part. I'm working what I can to try and get this part. We were able, with our service organization, who uses a portion of new parts, to actually work with our engineering team and develop a new recovery process and refurbish parts. And we were able to put those refurbished parts into our service organization and reduce the demand that we needed on parts for service, which enabled us to meet our revenue goals as well. So being able to do that flexibility, re-engineer, redesign, and this sort of thing has enabled us to actually deliver and keep the factory going.
That's great. Thanks, Glenn. Satish.
I love that attention.
Yeah. Toilet paper shortages, baby formula shortages, a lot of things have been in high demand. You've been able to supply the parts to keep the factories going over those 2+ years. How?
Before we get to how, I really want to acknowledge my team. They've been phenomenal. Without them, all this would not be possible. I have no more hair to lose, so it's their turn now. Secondly, the cross-functional teams in Bloom, phenomenal support. And the last but not the least, the supply partners we have. Without their support, we wouldn't have done what we have done. I think what we did was a combination of being proactive and also being nimble and demonstrate some innovation during this process. I'll give you an example. When you order pizza, you get a pizza. But what you don't know is that pizza box needs to be made with a food-grade paper. So you forget about the pizza box. You say, why am I not getting my pizza? So what we did was, when COVID started hitting, we went and mapped our entire supply chain, not just for the tier 1 suppliers, but we went down to tier 2 and tier 3 suppliers, like the food-grade paper. In our case, it was the resins that was used to make connectors. It was braised paste that is used to braise our hot boxes. So we mapped the entire supply chain. We found out where the choke points were. Then we did something really creative. Bloom supports a lot of hospitals in the US. So we sent letters out to all our suppliers that we support emergency services. And they could use this letter to show their local governments, because we had to secure supply. There were 2 parts to this problem. One is, how do you make your suppliers produce parts? And the second one was how to bring the parts into the US, or where our manufacturing was. So this letter actually helped in many cases where our suppliers were able to keep their factories running, bring people in. Of course, they did testing, everything was done safely, but it did help quite a bit to us. Then the second part was to bring parts here. We did many things, one of which was, like, courtesy Narcos TV show. When Shenzhen was shutting down, we put parts on a truck and brought it into Hong Kong. The guy was just driving around in Hong Kong till we found a container to put those parts on and bring into the US. Right? So we actually changed our entire logistics footprint. There is something we call cross-docking. A lot of people don't use it in the modern day, which basically maps the ports in the US for congestion, and you find port where there is less congestion, and you go dock your ships there. Pay a little bit extra, like what we did. Most of our parts for the Sunnyvale factories, come into LA Port or Oakland Port. But then we cross-docked it all the way in Baltimore and trucked the parts from Baltimore here, because Baltimore Port didn't have a lot of congestion. So that was one innovation we demonstrated. Second is, we created something called virtual hubs with help of FedEx and our logistics partners, where we consolidate shipments from the same country. Normally, suppliers don't work together to put all their parts into one container to ship to the US. We enabled that by creating a virtual hub in Taiwan, in India, and in Hong Kong, where we consolidated, so we had predictability of parts coming into the US. Then, of course, we found a lot of alternate sources, because tier 2 and tier 3, they're available, they're just not qualified. So with the help of engineering team and cross-functional teams, we did qualify a lot of alternate materials.
Yeah.
Now, flip side of this is the electronic components. They're very standard. They're not unique to us. This is where I think my background in semiconductors helped, where typically electronic components are spread around geographically. When you look at Germany, they're very strong in automobile. If you really want parts, automobile-grade parts, if you try to go find that in Southeast Asia, you usually don't find them. So we had boots on ground in Germany, in Belgrade, to source these parts, because even the automobile guys were struggling. They didn't have matching parts to make the cars. So they had excess parts of something which they couldn't use. So we approached these distributors in Europe to get those parts. We changed our BOM, not to just buy from direct sources, but also to buy from distribution and use them in our products.
Great.
So it is a combination of all these strategies that actually helped. I'm proud of my team. We didn't have a single line stoppage for materials, touch wood.
I'd make 2 points to add to that. First is, it has come with some cost, those activities you have, and we've prioritized keeping the factories open and meeting demand for our customers for that. So that has come at some cost. I think your team's done an amazing job offsetting that.
Thank you.
You've had the advantage. I think Rick and I both referred to iridium and platinum. We don't have to source that. That's a precious metal, not a rare earth metal. Yeah. So I just want to be clear on that.
It's not like you give us any slack on our goals. Right?
No.
I just want to say.
Great. Hey, Carl, KR referred to it, Rick referred to it. We've got an efficiency advantage not only in the electrolyzer, but in our fuel cell, hydrogen fuel cell as well. What are you guys thinking about what we could do with that efficiency benefit that we might not have talked about today?
Sure. So, looking at those two products, particularly when you combine them together, you can yield a relatively high round-trip efficiency. And just to explain round-trip efficiency in the energy world, think about it, a bank account. You put money in, you take money out, you earn a little interest. You get a little bit extra for storing your money there. Well, the parallel to that is energy storage, except there's a kind of a negative twist to it, where you put your energy in a bank, and when you take it out, it kind of costs you a little bit. Think about it as a negative interest checking account or savings account. Consequently, as the market looks at that, and that amount of energy that is lost, that turns into an efficiency loss, and that's round-trip efficiency. So as it relates to the energy storage market, currently today, energy storage is most predominantly with battery systems. Different size battery systems, most of it for short-term storage duration, and that's an important note. However, because of our products and our platforms, it's becoming more and more apparent that hydrogen is going to be the next level of energy storage, particularly for long-term energy storage. And as you look at our different products, as everybody has pointed out, and Greg had just mentioned, as I look at the pathway for development of our solid oxide electrolyzer, because of that high temperature, and Rick spoke to this a little bit, there's a pathway for development to get up into about the 87th percentile of efficiency for that electrolyzer. Conversely, as I take energy, hydrogen energy in my SOFC, and I convert that to usable energy in a fuel cell, I can get up to 95% total efficiency out of the SOFC for hydrogen. Now when I take those two together and I put them in a round-trip sense, I get to about 82%. So I start at 87, I get 95% of that, about 82%. That's rivaling what battery storage is doing today. And you get the benefit of it being a long-term strategy. Conversely, as you go look at some of the other technologies that are out there, particularly as you talk about PEM, their round-trip efficiency is going to be about 35%. Right? That means you have to pay 65% to get your money back. Only thing worse than that is my wife's purse, if I store my money. So, as I look forward, into our platform with the high temperature and our two main systems and their similarities, long-term energy storage is the way to go for Bloom. We see it as a core market we can win in.
That's great. That's great. Thanks, Carl. Glenn, back to you. You, in one of your many duties, you run our service platform, and we've committed to getting that to non-GAAP gross margin profitable.
Yep.
We've made a massive, a significant improvement to it last year. We're targeting profitability this year. Talk to us about how.
Yeah, I'll talk about, strangely enough, it's a bit of a familiar theme. People, process, execution, and innovation, is the core things that we're driving. I'll split it up into two around the cost reduction and then the enablement of innovation to do that. So if we look at the cost reduction, I think many of you got a chance to go around and look at the servers, look inside, look at a fuel cell module, talk a little bit about how the replacement time, 2 hours to get it sort of in and out and make a replacement. When we take that unit out, we take it back to our repair and overhaul. So we have complete ownership of all of those units, and we do, every single one is refurbished, and we recover about 97%, either refurbishment or reuse 97% of the fuel cell module. And so we recover a lot of the parts. In an example, when you saw, you looked at stacks and you've looked at columns and you see the ceramics down the side, we recover pretty much 100% of the ceramics that are put into a fuel cell. If you look at the stacks that you saw, we actually separate those stacks, recover the electrolyte. Those ICs go through the same line out there. And then they come back off, and then they go back in at a lower cost for us because we're not paying for the core IC, just the recovery cost, and then it's back into a hot box. So we put out a new we can take a hot box out of the field, turn it around in 3 weeks, restore a full 5 years plus of life, and that's 60% of the cost of me for a new one. and we're constantly innovating and driving, those improvements. So that's one thing that's keeping us. And last quarter alone, we reduced the price of a refurb unit by 2.9% the last quarter. So though there's the headwinds still there on the new parts, and it is causing us, a difficulty in keeping our nose forward, we are still able to drive the cost down to meet the goals. The second part that really drives, a big difference, again, is the innovation, that we have. So I talk a little bit about, my previous career. I was the head of global engineering for Hewlett-Packard, and I was also the chief quality officer for Hewlett-Packard. So my whole time I supported every single business unit there was in the company. I never had access to the data and information that we do in Bloom. Not even close. Even you go into the data center area and stuff like that, incredible data and information that we've got, the instrumentation that's been put into the systems. And then the other beauty is being integrated into the company, I can bug the crap out of Carl and his team and so on around, how can we look at innovation? So not only have we got an innovative product, we've got innovation through everything that we do, throughout the whole company. I talked to you a little bit about manufacturing, but let me talk to you a little bit about service. We created a team that we got a great design goes in the field, but those 700 sites that are out there, all those servers are out there, we're capturing data back from them real time. Yeah. And so we're able to determine how to operate our equipment and optimize its performance in the field on an ongoing basis. And it's very interesting because the bigger we get, the faster we learn. You'd think it would be a reverse, when you see larger and larger companies, because we've got more of an installed base. I'm giving more information back. I'm learning more about how to manage the systems and operate the systems. So in conjunction with Carl and his team, we've found ways with our existing design to get more power out of them and to get more life of them. So we've taken the inherent design and driving controls, the way we manage fuel, the way we manage temperature, the way we manage current, etc., to get more life out, which means I replace less of them, which means its cost goes down on that alone. So you put all that together, that it really is an end-to-end system that we have. It's enabling me to keep on track and make my commitment here.
Great. Okay. Hey, Satish, just quickly, we talked a little bit about the past. How are you positioning your organization to support the future? The growth rates we've talked about, international, here, et cetera. How are you thinking about that?
I think kind of our approach is three-pronged. One is grow the existing supply base, right? We have significant growth trajectory in front of us. We have talked to majority of our key suppliers, and they are investing significant amounts of money to increase the capacity. Secondly, during COVID, one of the proactive measures we did was when countries were shutting down, we issued a lot of risk buy authorization to most of our suppliers to buy the raw materials in bulk. As they say, every challenge is an opportunity. What we found was if we can go directly to the mills, we can get preferential pricing and allocation. In the past, our volumes were not so big. Now, with these volumes, we have their mind share. We are in a much stronger position to negotiate better raw material pricing. So we are going to start contracts, long-term supply contracts with our raw material suppliers. Yeah. And the last but not the least is we have to look at our supply chain footprint optimization going forward. Building a part in the US and shipping all the way to Europe when the volumes are low probably makes sense, but if the European market grows quite big, we probably will look at some joint ventures with some of our supply partners who already have infrastructure there. This is again scope expansion. It's motivation for them to grow with the company and also helps us to use our cash position better. So it's all these three strategies, Greg, that we're going to use to scale and support the growth.
Great. We're going to need all the help. Got big growth numbers. Listen, I think what you heard today is that we've got a team here that is executing and continues to execute. We've got technology differentiation that we haven't yet even applied, and we have the opportunity to drive profitable growth. What I want you to take most from this discussion, why we had this roundtable, is these gentlemen lead teams of equal caliber, great caliber, in order to help the company grow, and I just want to give you a sense of their great leadership skills and their command for their areas. So thank you all.
Thank you all. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Meeting you guys.
Yeah.